record the meeting. Okay, so now we've started recording. I know we have some new members, so I thought we would, start with our call to order. Of course, Reverend Veronica as the current chair, and potentially the ongoing chair. We have to, of course, elect a new chair tonight and a vice chair.
Yes.
But if you want to proceed with the call to order.
Yes, I'd like to call our meeting to order for Measure S Citizens Oversight Committee. And it's at 4:05. And again, we want to welcome to the quarterly meeting of the Measure S Citizens Oversight Committee for the city of San Bernardino. Just like to read these to make sure that it's in the minutes. Anyone who wishes to speak during public comment or on a particular item would be required to fill out a speaker slip. Speaker slips must be handed into the secretary. You may email your request to speak to angel_ro@sbcity.org prior to 4:00 p.m. Each request will cover one speaker. Those who wish to speak must submit their own request to be called on by the chairperson. There is a 3-minute per person time limit for all comments, excluding quasi judicial hearings. All who wish to speak, including Measure S Citizens Oversight Committee and staff, need to be recognized by the chairperson or vice chairperson before speaking. Please contact the finance department at 909-384-5242, 2 working days prior to the meeting for any request for reasonable accommodations to include interpreters. And while we are speaking, please turn off or mute your cell phone while the meeting is in session. Very good. So to begin our agenda, we have a pledge of allegiance. We understand we got a flag in. Yeah, good. No, I ask you to stand. Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Again, gonna have roll call. We do have our new members that is coming on board on our Measure S. So I guess we'll have a roll call and then we'll do official welcoming. Okay, and I'll start. I'm Reverend Veronica Martindale, Ward 6, and the Measure S chair. And we'll start with you, Mark.
Okay, Mark Baxter, Measure S Committee, Mayor's appointee.
Thank you.
Jeff Curry, Ward 4.
Okay,
Anthony Robertson, Ward 5.
excellent.
Gloria Maya, 2nd Ward.
Amen. And I guess Venus L. Williams is Ward 1, and she won't be in today. She's not feeling all that rough, but she did share, let us know that she would not be there today. So again, welcome to our new committee members. And who are we missing? I mean, do we need any other fillers? Ms. Barbara?
Derek Wesson from Ward 7 is absent.
And he's still gonna be with us?
As far as we're.
Yes, okay, all right, great. I guess before we get going, and we welcome you as members, but Mark, would you like to say anything, please?
What?
Just a little bit about yourself, just give us a little bit about you.
Mark Baxter, retired, formerly worked for a couple different cities here in Southern California, always in the finance department and as purchasing manager. Married, couple sons, we all live in San Bernardino and enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to being on this committee and trying to help out the city. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And Ms. Jeff,
I am Jeff Curry. I'm mediator, retired. I'm looking forward to working with the city. I hope to be able to make a contribution to the work that you all do. I was asked to join by Fred Charette, council member, and Mayor Pro Tem from Ward 4. So I'm happy to be here.
good, thank you, and welcome again to both of you. Thank you very much. Okay, as we're gonna go forward on our business, we have for number 2, review of the City of San Bernardino Boards Commission and Citizens Advisory Commission Handbook, bylaws, the Brown Act, and Rosenberg's rules. I guess, Ms. Barbara, are you taking that over?
I am. I was hoping that someone from the clerk's office could make it today, however they couldn't. But I just want to let you all know you have these lovely notebooks that Roxana put together, and they have everything in here. The City of San Bernardino Council strategic targets and goals is your first tab. The city charter, bylaws for boards, commissions, and citizen advisory committees. We've got municipal code that governs boards and commissions and committees, and then public speaking resolutions, the Brown Act, and Rosenberg's rules. And those are kind of all the things that govern how committees work in the city. And it's a lot of reading materials. So I encourage you, usually we would say, hey, you want to leave these so you know that you don't forget to bring it back or whatever. But in this case, I really encourage you to take it home and spend some time going over it, because it's really like reading and you'll enjoy it so much, I think. But it is good stuff to know. It really is. And it kind of gives you some insight into how government works and how we hope ideally people that may come in here from the public and want to address this body will ideally behave. People don't always have the decorum that we hope that they will. But a lot of this sort of says, this is how people should behave when they want to speak in public. This is how, we should treat each other. And then other things like, these are the council's goals. This is how, this committee is intended to, interact. And this is the goal of this commission and so it's kind of interesting reading in the sense that it tells you, what a commission is versus a board versus a committee. So lots of interesting stuff. If that interests you, it may just absolutely put you to sleep, but either way, it's something good to have as a community member. So that's really all I have with that. BB&K, our attorneys, Best and Krieger, have lots more information on, board membership, committee membership, if you're interested, and I'm happy to get more information if any of you are ever interested.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barbara. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Barbara? We're good. Yes, okay. All right, so now we're going to our nominations and elections of a new chairperson and vice chairperson. So, Ms. Barbara, how are you going to be handling that? Okay.
And this is something that has to happen every time there's an election of new council members, because each member of the committee should be reappointed with each election. It doesn't always happen because council members are like, I'm still here, why do I have to reappoint? So they don't always reappoint, but we do assume that if they don't reappoint, that they are sort of reappointing by not saying anything. So that's kind of how it rolls most of the time. But as reappointed members and new members, it's a requirement for us to say, hey, we have to elect a new committee chair and a new committee vice chair each time there's a changeover in the council. So it's this committee's duty at this point to elect a new chair and vice chair for the committee at this time.
Okay,
So do we have a nomination?
so I have some nominations that I would like to bring forth. For our chair, I would like to nominate Mr. Anthony Roberson. And for vice chair, I would like to nominate Ms. Gloria Amaya. That's my nomination. Do I have to?
Do we have a second?
I can second that.
It's been moved, motioned, and second. May I do it since I'm the one that's made the motion?
I'll do it, I just.
Okay,
write it
okay, great,
through.
okay, good.
All right, call for a vote. If we could, we'll just go around.
Yes.
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 Okay, so our new chair is Anthony Roberson and our vice chair is Gloria Amaya. Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's item number 3, business completed. And if does our new chair proceed at this point?
You know, I was gonna ask, could I would move that down to the bottom, but Anthony, you can go ahead on and get your feedback. Support you 100%.
Thank you, Madam Chair, I appreciate it. Now we'll go to item 4, approve of draft minutes from February 28th, 2022, which will be on the back of your agenda. Take a moment to review if there's any corrections needed. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve the draft minutes from February 28th, 2022?
I move that the minutes from May.
Motion by Commissioner Curry, can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Martindale. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Pass.
Yes, good. And I wanted to, and I don't know when I should speak up regarding the funds. I know we talked about our Measure S funds being dedicated to some of the funds to going to violence and intervention programs. Can we get an information on an update on that? Or when does that come in?
Would you like a report on the violence intervention program?
Just the funding from that was allocated from this Measure S to go to, we had suggested or at least voted for some of our $10,000 to go to our parks and recreation for the intervention. And I know that my girl said, so I wanted to get that, she's gonna come up on this, okay, that's gonna be, when is that for parks and rec? Oh yeah, 10,000, yes. No, it was 10, okay. And did we give some funding for our VIP too? Okay. Violence and prevention funds.
All right, can I have the report from the Park and Recreation and Community Service for the use of $10,000 in the Measure S funding? Report by our Director of Parks and Recreation and Communities Services. Thank you.
Thank you for having me today, and I'm excited to give you an update on what we've done with the Measure S funds in the amount of $10,000. When I came on board here in the city, I was told that we had been given some funding, but we immediately saw a complete separation of how folks would be able to get access to the funding. So the very first thing we did is we did a full analysis of how many kids in our programs would actually need this type of service and how many families would need it. And then we started looking at more breakdowns of would it be just one individual or would we make it for all kids? So in doing that and doing our analysis, we created the Youth Enrichment Scholarship. We call it the YES because we were hearing a lot of no's. And so the YES Scholarship is for youth enrichment programs. Initially, we thought it would be just for sports, but we started to see that there was much more need in other areas such as after-school programs, as well as some of our weekend contract class options like karate. And so what we did is we started to open up those funds to that. And then finally, this past summer, we had a request from an organization that had kids that were coming from abusive households. And so they needed a safe place to go for summer camp. And so we opened up the summer camp option to them as well. What the Youth Enrichment Scholarship does is it provides $100 to any child that applies. So if you're a family of 7 children, all 7 children can get $100. It is not funding that is given to you in cash. It is funding that is put in as a credit in our registration software. So that way, every time you want to register for a class, we use that balance and we break it down until you've used your $100. As of yet, we had 22 scholarships that have utilized the YES funds. And so we're actually, we've used $8,135 of the Measure S funds. I'm sorry, we've only used 1,800 of the Measure S funds and we have 8,100 left. But I do have to say, our whole new sports program, I'd say about 90% are planning on using the scholarship. So in the next 6 months, you'll definitely have an update. And I have a feeling that by the end of the fiscal year, we'll be fully using the $10,000. I do have to state, some people are like, why only 1,800? The majority of our programs are free or $5. We don't have high cost programs. And so we're just starting to rebuild our programming model. And so because of that, it's going to take some time for the $100 to dwindle down. But like I said, we're really confident. We're also asking Measure S committee to consider letting us continue using these funds, but also expanding it to seniors programs as well as teen and adult programs. We're finding that there is a high request for exercise and fitness as well as socialization programs in those categories. And so we would like to expand the YES scholarship to include those as well. Like I said, we've had 22 families that have utilized it or individuals that have utilized it. And I'd like to read 2 of what we require in the scholarship is a little paragraph from families saying how this would benefit them. And so I want to show you the impact that this is having. Greetings, my name is Tamala Shirley. I am a mother of 3 daughters, the ages of 7, 5, and 4. They are my world and I would like to put them in many activities. I would like to continue to put them in activities that will teach them leadership, community, and teamwork through physical activity. I think that the YES scholarship is a great way for them to learn the aforementioned skills. I thank you so much for this opportunity. Another one. The YES funds would help ease the financial burden of childcare during the summer during my work hours. Attending summer day camp will provide a safe local place for my 4 children to enjoy a summer filled with exciting crafts, indoor and outdoor activities, science experiments, field days, and water activities. Something that is reliable and fun and educational in childcare that is costly. Even though the city's Parks and Rec Community Services Department offers rates that are very reasonable, as a widow and a single mother of 4, $400 per week is a substantial portion of our income. Receiving this scholarship would not only lessen the financial strain on our family, but it would allow me to work with peace of mind knowing my children are not only safe, but that they're also enjoying their summer. So that's my report for today. I wanted to let you know that the funds are going towards what we wanted them to go towards. Even though we've expanded the programming, which is a good thing, we're going to continue to expand it, and I hope that we can continue to use the remaining balance and count on the Measure S committee to continue supporting us in these efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Duffield. Is there any questions for Ms. Duffield?
Yes, first of all, good, and thank you for doing the assessment and being able to get information also from the parents and having them write down how they feel and what their need is in the community, because that's what's important for us to get. And then you stated that we needed to have some more adult programs and senior programs. And what about our coaches? How is our coaches as far as over our sports as well?
Our current coaching staff is our staff, so we don't have like external contracted coaches. However, we're looking at summer contracted programs like Skyhawks Academy, which would come in and do a football camp or a basketball camp during the summer. Those coaches could be then paid for through this as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have a question. You said that,
Commissioner Matt,
oh, sorry. The enrollment was $5 or free? So if each person is getting $100, what's the whole cost going to?
So it just goes towards the registration costs, and in a sense, we're waiving the registration. So the $5 programs are the things that we have after school. The $100 programs are more like our summer camps for a full week. That would be $100. And so we want to offer every option. So that's swim lessons, summer camps, sports leagues. So some of our sports leagues are $45, but the most basic programs are just after school. And those are probably the heaviest attended through this program. Is this moms and dads want a safe place for their kids to go after school and make some good decisions so they can be at the community centers and do something safe.
So that $100 will cover the cost of 1 week for like daycare.
I do have a question for you, Ms. Gutfield. You said you used $1,800 for scholarships, a total of 22 scholarships. Is there a breakdown between the wards that you gave the scholarships in, or is it just 22 combined scholarships throughout the city? Also, the other question, I know you said you want us to expand the program, and I know it's an $8,100 balance. Is there an opportunity to do an assessment of the YES program, right? When we talk about what the rubrics is, so how you're judging the scholarships for potential registries of citizens of San Bernardino to ensure that we are having the checks and balances, right? When we talk about individuals that's getting the scholarships, I think that would be helpful for this committee as we, provide that recommendation moving forward. I think that would be great. When we talk about enhancing the sports program, I know in our last meeting we talked about it because I remember Parks and Recs when they had the summer youth kind of job programs, also the feeding programs, things like that. Is that an opportunity? Because when we think about in the summertime, especially when parents are at work, and when we talk about our young kids don't have the opportunity to get nourishment, is there an opportunity through this YES program to expand that summer kind of lunch program?
So I'll go with number one, the wards. I can get you that. Absolutely. There'll just be a breakdown of our registration software. So that shouldn't be too hard. So I'll make sure I get that to Barbara so she can disperse it to you. Number two, as far as an assessment of the scholarship and developing a rubric, we do have the full application. So I want to make sure I get that to you as well. So you can review it and make edits. When we do get an application, I will tell you, we have not denied anybody. Just because if we have it, we should explore it and see how it turns out. However, we do ask that they let us know what their financial need is, and sometimes, like I read in these paragraphs, it's just peace of mind. Sometimes it's just not being able to, afford a full summer of camp. And so we're more than welcome, more than happy to continue evolving the rubric. We just try and make it as simple as possible. I will say, they're handwritten, right? So we're trying to move to digital, but we also have quite a few parents who don't want to put their information into a system. And so we have to be sensitive to those individuals as well. So any input that you guys want to give us on our application or our scoring rubric, I'd be happy to do and get that information from you. As far as summer meals, we were during the pandemic and after the pandemic during the summer meals. However, that program stopped. And so what we started to do is including a healthy snack in all of our after school programs. So at least they will get that. We're really excited because we were just awarded $185,000 from the school district with the CAPS program. That includes food distribution as well. And so hopefully all of the centers that are active in participating in the CAPS program children will also be available to take part in those programs, and they'll be available to get meals.
One more question, Ms. Cuthbert. So how is the Yes Scholarship marketed? Is it through Parks and Rec's website? Is it distributed to the local school districts? Also, are you going out and meeting with the parent advisory kind of groups? You know, when we talk about our Hispanic parent advisory groups, African American parent advisory groups, how is the information getting out to our youth in the city about this scholarship?
I love the question. Marketing wise, we're putting it on our social media, which has over 4,000 followers. So that's our first. We put it on our website as well. I will not lie that we've had a tough time with the school district and getting any distribution because in a sense, we're competing, right? It's not that they don't want us there. It's just, it's a lot of the same kind of programming. But we do have a few friends in the school district who do disperse the information for us. What we try to do is go to all of the neighborhood community association meetings and bring this information. And we also put it in our brochure that goes out to over 70,000 households.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Commissioner Meyer?
Yes, you mentioned that you wanted to include seniors and teens. Why weren't teens included in this portion when it was meant for children?
Because at the time, our sports programs only went K through 6th grade when we initially started this. So now that we're expanding and we're starting to really develop our teen programs, we were given a $600,000 Back to Nature grant where we started to include teens in recreational opportunities that are positive outdoor recreation. And so we took kids camping. We had 150 teenagers go to San Diego, to the zoo and to SeaWorld to learn marine biology. And so we're really starting to expand, but I don't want to be dependent on those large grants. I want to be able to have these types of activities and be able to expand to the teen population.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes. When they go through, the parents go through the registration process, what is it that they're writing down for registration? Because they're giving information.
We ask for your basic personal information, how we can get a hold of you, your address, we ask for date of birth, and then financially they have to provide some sort of document. But we're very, very lax. So it could be just a card that says I have food stamps. It could be anything.
So
that there's a financial part.
So they do give us that information,
They
right?
have to show us something.
So we were talking about them putting just their information as far as their feedback.
Mhm.
And they're saying that they don't want to give their feedback.
They don't want people to have their mail.
Right. I don't understand. I guess I missed that. Why would they have their mailing address? Who's gonna?
Because we mail them information about the program, things that are coming up. So if you're included in this program and we have, for example, a big sports day where we're gonna do something special in the field, we send out information. So then that way, if people don't have access to email or it's just information based, we send out quite a bit of stuff. And so they just don't want their information. That's what we've been told.
Commissioner Meyer?
Wouldn't their address be on their emergency card for their child?
A lot of the time they provide it. They stay on site.
Well, I do understand that because during one of the events, we had a couple of families that were homeless or displaced. Without an address, of course. So I get that. Is that one of the leading factors to why they're not providing or just they don't want?
I don't speak on that. I don't ask them that. To me, we're here to provide the service, so we just ask them for what we can, and if they can provide it, they have a financial hardship and we can provide them a service, then if they want to let us know that they're homeless and that they need some resources, we provide it to them, and that's part of the application as well. As there's another part of the mailing is like we send out resource information.
I think that demographics would be important to this commission as well. So that way, if there is extra funding, we can provide those services to those families that are displaced and that need that. So, and I mean, you said it's $100 per week, and if they're homeless, we would like to provide more services for the whole summer. So at least we know those children who are homeless have a safe place where they can be all day and be fed. So if we could somehow, maybe we could all work together and see how we could get that information, or even if it's just a a survey per se?
I believe the staff were working on an enhancement to the application that had a checkbox of do you need resources for, and then you could kind of check those resources. So we can go that route. I can also work with our homeless outreach team to see if we can get, they have a pamphlet already of resources, so when somebody comes in and registers, that's just an automatic handout that we can give them. But really that information does have to come freely from the individual, so, and we don't want to also dissuade them from participating, right? And so, but the other part is we had to be really careful, so the $100 was decided so that way we could give it to all. And we saw that there was a lot of people that are just afraid to ask, right? And so we're now making it more like, hey, we have this, so every time we have programs and we see kids that are on the side just going, you have that look of, I wish I could be in that program, we're immediately giving them these applications, but just letting them know that we're here to. But I appreciate that, and that's definitely something.
Yeah, we definitely have for
Yep.
funding, Parks and Recs, we have that, and since it's an issue here in San Bernardino, that would be imperative to funding and growth. Thank you.
Commissioner Curry?
Eddie, I like the idea of extending it to seniors. Can you give an example of how seniors would benefit, and would that in any way overlap or dovetail with any existing senior program funding?
So we're looking at maybe bringing on some contract instructors that can teach Tai Chi or chair volleyball or things that really help with a little bit of mobility as well as socialization. And right now our staff do not have any certification to teach gerontology programs. And so that's number one. Number two is our nutrition program is completely funded, grant funded. And so what we would like to do is to be able to bring in a nutritionist to teach how to cook a meal for one. A lot of the time when somebody loses their loved one, they lose the will to cook, and then therefore they start eating very unhealthy foods. And so really starting to bring people together through food and nutrition as well.
Any further questions?
I have one more.
Commissioner Matt?
Can we get an itemized report of the funding listed that was per family? Meaning, we've had this issue before where we're seeing money being spent but not allocated and itemized. I think that would be imperative, so that way we see, okay, this is exactly where that $10,000 went. And if there is additional funding, we can have, it went to these families and we need more. So I would like to see that as a suggestion.
So what I'll provide to you, Barbara, to disperse to the commission is we do have a report. It tells you exactly what each family is registered for, it tells you the amount, everything says 100. And then it tells you what activity they've been registered for. I do ask my staff every 6 months to give me an updated report of where we're at with it. So when I have that, I'll just get that cover letter memo to you, and then you guys every 6 months should have an update.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cutfield, for the report. We appreciate it. Now to the next report, capital projects and operations funding through Measure S, presented by Ms. Whitehall.
We're going to share it with the Zoom so that it can be recorded on the when we have it for the recording, and people pull up the recording to watch the meeting, they can see the presentation as well as hear it. So I'm going to give a little background on Measure S for the two new members so that they have a look at the context that the three people that have been on the committee have, as well as the performance. You want to pass me the mouse? And excellent. All right, so I should be able to mouse through this thing. Whoops, nope. What did I do? I'm gonna go. Yes. Oops.
Question. The way the PowerPoint one is at the bottom.
Okay. Maybe again. Okay. Okay, so a little background on Measure S. Measure S is a 1% transaction and use tax It actually was November 3rd, I think November 8th, 2020, I meant to fix that. And then collections began April of 2021. It replaced Measure Z, which was a quarter-cent transaction and use tax. So the difference between Measure Z and Measure S, people have a tendency to think like one just replaced the other and was more, but they're actually pretty significant. Besides being significantly more, it was quadruple the amount. Measure Z was actually governed by Measure YY, which specified the uses for Measure Z. It said Measure Z has to be used for very specific things. And it required an annual audit to ensure that the city used Measure Z for those things. And Measure Z had a 15-year life and was set to sunset in 2021. Measure S, on the other hand, has no governing measure. It's actually a general use tax. It has no specific purpose tied to it and no audit requirement. It's audited with our annual financial audit. So the auditors come in and they audit Measure S like they audit everything else. And there is no sunset for Measure S. So a few more quick facts. Measure S is approximately 28% of general fund revenue.
I'm sorry, Ms. Berger, so, when you go back, could you just go back? So why was it removed from there? There's no,
There's no YY.
young intervention, prevention programs specifically anymore?
No, that's sunset with Measure Z.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so Measure S is approximately 28% of the general fund revenue annually. And the total general fund revenues, to give you an idea, is 208 million. So Measure S is an enormous proportion of the revenue that the city brings in. The initial projections when they were talking about Measure S and how much of an impact it would have on the city was that it might bring in as much as 40 million a year. They're like, it could bring in 40 million. The first full year, it brought in 49.4 million. So it exceeded that in the initial year, pretty significant, 28% in the first year. It is a major source of funding for ongoing capital projects. The first fiscal year, which was the first 3 months, we anticipated $8 million. And we thought we were being pretty strident, like thinking $8 million was like that's a lot of money. And we ended up receiving 11,677,782 to be super precise, which was a lot. And that money was immediately just put into reserves for capital projects because we thought, at that point, we didn't know what money we were getting. It was brand new, that was something else. The second fiscal year was fiscal year 21-22, and we budgeted just over 41 million that year and received 49.4 in that second year. So that was pretty tremendous. And so the reserves, we added to reserves quite a bit, and the reserves went to 57 million. Now those reserves, as you're probably aware from council, if you watch council meetings, council's dedicated most of those reserves to various capital projects along the way. So they're not available, they're committed to capital projects. They exist, but they're committed to a lot of capital projects. And then in fiscal year 22-23, we don't know where we are with reserves yet because we're not finished with the audit. But our budget was 46 million and the actuals have come in at 52 million for Measure S. So that's still doing incredibly well, especially with, people slowed down their spending. People are no longer buying cars like they're gonna just keep buying cars. It's a little bit crazy. And that's one thing with a transaction and use tax versus a sales tax, is that it's not dependent on someone buying the vehicle here. I bought my car in Anaheim because nobody wanted a bright orange Subaru if you lived in Anaheim apparently. So I went to Anaheim and bought my bright orange Subaru. And I paid Measure S tax because I live in San Bernardino. So that's kind of the benefit of a transaction and use tax, is that if you live here and you go buy something elsewhere, you pay this tax if it's a major purchase, like a dishwasher or something like that. No matter where you buy it, you can pay Measure S, which I think is fantastic, actually. I was happy to pay that because I was like, yay, goes to the city, because I live here. So reserves, and I wanted to show everyone how the reserves kind of work, because general fund and Measure S, well, we record them in two different funds in the city, so that we know where the revenue comes in with Measure S. And we know where like general fund revenues are. Even though we talk about Measure S as like a general revenue, we still want to see it separately, so that we know where all those Measure S revenues are. So we have general fund balance at the end of 22 was about 97 million. Measure S was about 57 million. And then we were estimating at the end of this year about a $37 million operating increase. So total fund balance of about 191.5 million. But then within that, you have various categories. So non-spendable is what is in corporate, especially, is referred to as property, plant, and equipment, which is stuff you can't like turn into cash right away, right? It's like this, it's like the building we're in, anything that's not spendable cash. Restricted, committed, and assigned would be like things that council's committed to CIP. That's committed. And then restricted would be like a grant restriction. You know, we have funds that we have that a grant rule applies to, or a legal rule like seized funds that the police have seized. And then we have the two reserves that council set up for economic contingency and emergency reserve. And that's 10% and 15% of our expenditure budget. So that's $20 and $30 million. And then we had special reserves that they set up at the end of the fiscal year for this fiscal year. Excuse me, I don't know why my voice is weird. So that leaves us with available unassigned fund balance estimated of about 12 million. This is going to change because we're not done with our audit, so it'll vary a little bit. But that's how we look at our reserves. And, you know, that changes as we finish closing out our projects and as we finish our encumbrances and, you know, close out purchase orders and roll things forward and make sure that everything's done. That available unassigned balance will, you know, go up and down as we finish the year. And Measure S reserves, I wanted to talk about how, you know, council has those reserves. And this is something that if you're interested, we can always have Azam and his team, let's see him center, come and give us a presentation on the specific projects and talk more in detail. But I wanted to give some examples of some of the projects that are funded by Measure S, because I think it's important to kind of point them out. So I picked out some streets projects, one in each ward, just from the big list. And then, so this is just a list of some of the street projects. And then there are also parks projects and other projects that we have all over the city. And there are dozens and dozens of projects, and they're everywhere. And not seeing parks projects in every ward doesn't mean that there aren't projects in every ward. Like in the 6th ward, for example, we have, oh, what's the park? Not Dillman, it's the other one.
Angelos.
I'm sorry?
Angelos.
No, Nicholson Park that we have that we're funding, but it's not funding through Measure S. And so it's not that the project isn't happening, but it isn't through this revenue stream. So I just want to point out that, you know, if something's not funded here, it doesn't mean it's not funded. So, you know, and because I thought, oh, why isn't that here? And then I thought, well, because it's not Measure S, it's going through the ARPA funds. So, you know, there are so many projects and so many revenue streams that, you know, I thought, well, dang, that isn't in here. And then I thought, oh, well, of course it's being funded. It's just not being funded through this revenue stream. So, we have so many projects and I honestly don't know how, our engineering team keeps track of them all. So if you have any questions or want me to go back to anything, I'm happy to. I just wanted to give kind of an overview of where we were. And I'm happy to provide more detailed information at another meeting or in between, or we can look at anything you all want. But I wanted to make sure at this meeting, because we have new members and because we haven't met in a while, that at least I gave an overview.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes, thank you very much. That was beautiful. I love how you broke that down. Can we get a copy of that so that we can, please, all the commissioners get a copy of that? That'd be great.
Commissioner Kurt?
Just wanted to say the same thing, really, ditto, that was very helpful, thank you.
Commissioner Baxter?
So, when you said, the revenues and you have some reserves. How the Measure S funds go into the general fund?
They're transferred in kind of automatically. Council commits them as part of the budget. And once they've committed them as part of the budget, we just automatically transfer them.
From the state, you get two different funding. You get the regular sales tax, plus then you get the Measure S. And
Exactly.
then so I just understand, then it all goes, eventually it's transferred into the general fund.
Yes,
So it can be spent on really anything, not really assigned for any particular project, or you showed projects up there.
it can be, but the Measure S revenue we keep in the Measure S fund unless we specifically need it for something else. If it's assigned for something else, we move it, but otherwise we keep it in the Measure S fund.
So the Measure S fund, then you have a separate chart of accounts for that too? Yeah.
Yes.
That was my question.
Any other questions for Ms. White? Thank you so much. Commissioner Baxter?
Is there a breakdown that you can provide to us by department on Measure S funding? So like PD gets so much, public work gets so much percentage of that, or how is that, in the operating budget?
Zuiva says yes. She's my budget manager right over there. So she says, yeah.
And yeah, I was gonna ask for the same thing because I know in our last meeting, we had that kind of breakdown. What funds go to which department, because like we know, some go to public works, some go to PD, things like that. So I think that will be helpful as we look at it. And my question, Ms. Whitehorn, as you guys are building these Measure S funds out and kind of forecasting the budget for the next year, are you going on prior year, or are you going now? We know that when we think about construction costs, it's more, right? So are you guys basing it on how we think about forecasting for capital planning projects? Are you basing on the new price per square foot? Because I know when we think about, I'm just saying, funds go to this one pot, and like you said, is there a way? Because you said if you need Measure S funds to go to a different project, how does that work? Because sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Whitehorn, if it's something allocated for Measure S, it has to go to that particular project. So is there another process you have to go through if that particular project wasn't funded for Measure S, but you want to use that funds?
You mean if like a project, say, is funded through Measure I and we need more funds? Usually in that case, if we have a cost overrun and we need more funds and we don't have enough in a particular revenue stream, we will look at other projects and say, okay, do we have any projects that are coming in under? Sometimes we do. I mean, you think like we never would, but sometimes we do. And that's where we'll look first. And if we don't have enough there, then we'll look at, okay, where do we have enough revenue? And if it's not in the revenue stream where that particular project is funded, then we'll look at the other revenue streams. And at that point, we go to council and we say, okay, we have these revenue streams and this is what we've identified for where we can fund this project cost overrun. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all from one pot. We could have a project that's funded from multiple revenue sources. It just kind of depends on how it's gonna fit.
Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions?
I do.
Commissioner Amaya?
Well, I'm reading the fiscal impact. It says it was potentially to generate 40 million, as stated, in annual local funding for general city services such as public safety, street, park, library maintenance, and youth and senior, and homeless service programs. So we'll see that allocated in that budget as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Zuiva can give us the breakdown of how it's being spent right now.
I would just like to say true to the language of the actual Measure S.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you so much, Ms. Whitehorn. That was great. Now on to new business. Does anyone have any items they would like to be added to our next meeting agenda? I know for myself, and I know Ms. Whitehorn brought this up, I definitely would love Azam to come and talk about capital projects that they have going on, so we can actually see exactly what's going on, also what the milestone dates of those projects are. When we're thinking about, because you know, the longer you do projects, the longer you drag out, the more money it costs the city, right? So want to definitely get some information on that, if that's possible. So that's great. Mr. Baxter, Commissioner Baxter.
I guess I'd like to see more financial data. Kind of more of a breakdown of where, what is it now? $52 million is being, it's budgeted for the $46 million is budgeted for this year going in the 22-20 or 23-24, correct? So it'd be nice to see a general breakdown of how that is budgeted, you know, so we can see what's going on with that money. And you said that the annual audit for 22-23 is not complete yet, but part of that audit is an audit of Measure S funds.
Not specifically, like Measure Z had a very specific Measure Z audit that was done separately. Measure S would be just part of the general audit. So they would audit it just in the same way that they would audit any other fund of the city. So it wouldn't be like a report that they would issue for Measure S. They would just test it like they would test anything else in the city.
I thought I read in an ordinance that there was an actual independent audit of Measure S fund. No, you know, maybe I could be wrong. I'll look, thank you.
Any other items for consideration for our next agenda's meeting? Commissioner Martin?
Yes, just the information, I guess Commissioner Amaya has stated that you would like some information from Parks and Rec. I don't know, we could go over those things to be included for the next meeting. So could you
The itemized list, is that what you want, right?
itemize this for the activities or how that funding is? I guess the Parks and Recreation itemized list for activities.
Any other items for consideration for the agenda? Thank you so much. So I will adjourn this meeting at 4:59. Our next regular Measure S committee, it will be determined on the date and the time, so be on the lookout. Yeah, we would like
Yes.
to, I guess.
Yes.
That's a great point, so
And I did.
since everyone's here. And we can probably, I know, Roxanne, I'll be sending us email. So
Yes.
if we can come to a consistency now, I think would be great. Does this time work for
It's
everybody?
Tuesday. Or Tuesdays at 4 is fine for me.
4 o'clock's fine for me.
Do we need the third?
Do we want to do 3 months from now exactly? Would be January 20. Oh wait, I'm out of town. How about January?
Tomorrow is on both the 23rd and the 30th. Yes.
Yeah, shoot. We could do January 9th.
Commissioner Curry?
At 4 o'clock.
Would it be possible to do it earlier then, because the time changes and
Earlier in the day,
earlier, maybe an hour earlier?
3 o'clock, does that work, or is that too early?
Yeah, is it too early?
Too early?
It's too early.
It's too early for me, sorry.
Yes.
I take time off to be here.
Yeah. But
I withdraw.
At 4 o'clock. That's good. I did have, before you exit, and they had an announcement too, first, just so you.
all right. So I will definitely go around to the commissioners if you have any announcements. Commissioner Amaya,
Not at this time.
Commissioner Martin.
Yes, I would like to state that the San Bernardino Valley College Foundation is presenting a fundraiser for higher education. It's entitled Joy to the World. It's for it's a Christmas scholarship fundraiser. So it's gonna be Wednesday, December 6th at 6 p.m. at the San Bernardino Valley College Auditorium. And the San Bernardino Unified School District youth are gonna be doing music and dancing and whatnot. We wanted to promote and support the youth. So I'll be sharing that amongst, and I don't know, can our media post this up too for the city?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. And then I'm always want to leave with a positive quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. States, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So I'm glad that we're speaking out and making things happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Curry?
No, I have nothing.
Commissioner Baxter?
No, nothing to add.
I just want us, to really, the announcement that I have to really keep our city in prayer. We know, from the city council meeting, I know we had, a press conference yesterday. So I just want us to make sure we come together as a city, especially in this time. I think we all need to come together as commissioners. It's not about this ward, that ward. I think we all need to come because we all are citizens of San Bernardino. So I think in this time, we just need to make sure we're supporting each other in this time of need of our city of San Bernardino.
Absolutely. And again, Roxana, beautiful job on our folders. Thank you so very much. Excellent. Thank you, Anthony.
And now I adjourn this meeting officially at 5:03. Where I get it, that's what. Don't see anything.